Hello, everyone. I'm Becca, dietitian by trade, mom 24/7, wife from the start, and when there's a few extra hours in the day, you might find me hitting the trails or on horseback.
And I'm Kara, a therapist to women, a mom to a boy, an entrepreneur, mountain junkie, and a postpartum runner.
And this is Fit for a Queen, a podcast that's devoted to the female athlete wanting to balance the teeter-totter of all the things we desire out of life as women: performance, health, intellect, and taking time for self, even if we only get 1 minute out of the day.
We're so excited to be bringing you the queens in the athletic world who have done just that. Okay, ladies, take a seat at your thrones, grab your crowns, and welcome to Fit for a Queen. We've got Shannon Miller with us on Fit for a Queen today. And I mean, she goes without saying, but I have to read this biography of hers. Shannon Miller remains the most decorated Olympic gymnast in American history with 7 Olympic medals, 2 gold, 2 silver, and 3 bronze. She's the only female athlete to be inducted into the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame twice for an individual and a team in 2008. Shannon has won an astounding 59 international and 49 national competition medals. Over half of these have been gold. She's the first U.S. gymnast to win 2 world all-around titles. Her tally of 5 medals at the 1992 Olympics was the most medals won by a U.S. athlete in any sport. At the 96 Games, she led the Magnificent Seven to the U.S. women's first ever team gold, and for the first time for any American gymnast, she captured gold on the balance beam. After retiring from Olympic competition, Shannon received her undergraduate degrees in marketing and entrepreneurship from the University of Houston and her law degree from Boston College.
Shannon remains a part of the gymnastics and Olympic communities as an analyst and commentator. Now retired from competition, Shannon has moved from Olympic athlete to advocate for health and wellness of women and children. Shannon launched her company Shannon Miller Lifestyle Health and Fitness for Women in July 2010. She continues to travel the country as a highly sought-after motivational speaker and advocate for the health and wellness of women and children. In January of 2011, Shannon was diagnosed with a rare form of ovarian cancer. She had a baseball-sized tumor removed successfully and followed up with an aggressive chemotherapy regimen. Shannon's remained open and public about her diagnosis and treatment and continues to empower women to make their health a priority. Shannon's currently cancer-free and continues to be a strong advocate for early detection, awareness, research, and survivorship. Shannon's book, It's Not About Perfect: Competing for My Country and Fighting for My Life, is her inspirational memoir written to encourage and empower others to break through and overcome their personal challenges. Shannon and her husband, John Falcinetti, hope I said that right, have 2 children, Rocco and their daughter Sterling. Well, welcome, Shannon. We cannot wait to interview you. You have such an amazing story behind you.
Oh, well, thank you.
Yeah, well, would first like to talk about something we talk about often on our podcast about transitioning out of sport and this athletic identity. So talk about a transition that you had to make going from a sport that you received so much success and attention from. Can you talk a little bit about that journey as you after you decided to retire?
Absolutely. And you're right. It is a journey. And it is a very complicated one oftentimes. And it's actually something that is not just about Olympic athletes, but collegiate athletes, professional athletes they face when we've devoted so much time and effort and passion. We have, these our own little families within these sports.
Mm-hmm.
These people that we train with, our teammates every single day, and you really do kind of become a family. And then one day it's gone. And it's not just about no longer kind of having all your friends right there with you every step of the way, but it's also the structure. And I think as a young athlete, especially the first time I retired, I was 19, which for the most part was my retirement. I came back a few years later for kind of like a 7-month stint. So really at 19, I retired on the heels of winning 2 gold medals at the Olympic Games, the height of my career. and, you're competing in front of thousands of people. I went on tour afterwards, 100 cities. Again, every night, thousands of people cheering for you. And then I went back to school. I had already started going part-time, taking college classes while I was training for the games. And so I went back to school and thought, okay, well, I'll just keep going with this. And I wasn't prepared for the lack of structure, the lack of that 40 hours a week where I was supposed to be somewhere doing something. And all of a sudden, the structure of having my family, because I moved close to campus. So I was no longer coming home every night to my family with my dinner prepared and, someone to talk to. I didn't have my coaches right there to always talk to, or teammates. And so for me, I was very shy growing up. Gymnastics had given me kind of confidence. When I would put on that leotard, it was like putting on my Superman uniform, and I could go out and I could be confident, but I didn't have my leotard on anymore. And so I kind of reverted back to that shyness. I wasn't working out. I kept on eating my 6 full meals a day that I ate as an athlete to keep up with the caloric intake I needed. And that doesn't really work when you're getting no exercise. So I gained 4 dress sizes in a matter of months, which I just didn't even think about nutrition and diet and lack of exercise. I just had not even put that together. And so I think it's often the things we don't think about that kind of catch us off guard. And so when I look back, I think the most important thing an athlete can do is have a plan.
Yeah.
And have that safety net and try to keep up socially as much as possible, even if you're not doing that active training. For me, I think one thing that really helped me, even through all of that, and kind of that unknown of who am I without gymnastics, I think the one thing that kept me going was that my parents had always, they were always adamant that education came first. Yes, honey, that's great that you're doing this Olympic thing. We'll support you, but how'd you do on your math test? Are you keeping your grades up? And for me, that was so critical, because what that told me from them every step of the way was gymnastics is not life. Life is life. And there's going to be a long life after you finish gymnastics, whenever that might be. So let's get prepared for it.
Love that. I have the opportunity. I consult at a university here in Kansas City, and we do a life after sport program. And one of the questions that one of the athletes asked that really struck me was, how do I make friends outside of my sport? And so what words of wisdom could you give for athletes that they could use as a support system when they're making this transition out of sport and making it just a little bit easier?
Honestly, that was probably one of my most challenging areas as a very shy, now people can't believe I'm shy because I talk nonstop, but I was painfully shy, and I didn't have a lot of friends outside of gymnastics. Gymnastics was those people that I identified with because they were doing the same things I was doing. And I was 4'7". I weighed 70 something pounds as a freshman in high school. So
Yeah.
I didn't exactly, quote, fit in all that well. So, and people were nice to me and everything. I didn't have any bullying issues, but I didn't know how to make friends really outside my sport. And I think what I found in my early 20s was I had to put myself out there. And just like in gymnastics, I couldn't be afraid to fail. and that was hard for me in a social setting versus a gymnastic setting. But I actually started getting involved with trying new things. I decided I was going to start accepting speaking engagements and just sink or swim. If I did horrible, okay. Then I failed, but that's okay. I learned. And I started actually golfing. I started playing golf. Someone had given me golf clubs for my high school graduation. Of course, they sat in the garage because I was a gymnast. What was I going to do with golf clubs? And so I thought, I watched all these people go out, and it's hours upon hours where you have to talk to people while you're playing a sport. And I thought that might be good for me because I'm doing something active, yet at the same time, I'm kind of forced to socialize.
Mm-hmm.
And so I started going to a lot of these charity tournaments and playing, attempting to play. And I found out that I really love talking to people. I love
Yeah.
asking questions. I love finding out about them. And it took the pressure off me because
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't all about me. It was about me getting to know them. And so it kind of the perspective changed in my mind about me having to kind of carry the burden and instead just enjoy learning about people and finding out what they like and what they do.
That's great.
That takes the pressure off. Yeah.
Instead of athletic pushing yourself out of the box, you almost were looking at it more from a social standpoint.
Yes, and I think kind of bridging the gap with having it be a social setting yet a physical activity kind of straddled that line for me a little bit, made it a little bit more comfortable.
I'm just thinking of the sport going from gymnastics to golf, which is such a mental sport. It's
It
a
is.
big change.
It is. It's well, and what I found was gymnastics is actually a lot like golf in the mentality that you need. It's not all brute strength. So much of it is strategy. It's finesse. It's the mental game. So that really spoke to me.
It's not just
I
out
can
there
drive
whacking
the ball.
That's
When
what
it
I
comes
do.
to putting, oh, watch out.
Well, Shannon, again, you've had such a journey, one that's been includes being diagnosed and battling ovarian cancer. The symptoms can be very subtle. How did you find out, and what helps you get through battling this disease?
I think one of the scariest things for me throughout my cancer journey was that in fact, I was doing an interview after I had been diagnosed. I had had surgery. We found out that it was ovarian cancer, and I went public with the diagnosis. And during one interview, I was asked if I had any symptoms, and I said no, I didn't know anything that was going on. I had no symptoms. And my husband actually happened to be there. It was at our home and happened to be there. And he pulled me aside later and he said, "Hey, do you remember calling me doubled over with pain and you weren't sure how you were going to get our son out of the crib because your stomach hurt so bad?" And I didn't even remember that. And so then I started thinking about the signs and symptoms of ovarian cancer, which are things like severe stomach pain, sudden weight loss. I had lost 6 pounds in a month, and I just had chalked it up to awesome. I'm still losing some baby weight. Our son had just turned 8 years old. I'm like,
Oh,
okay,
wow.
cool. Bloating. What woman isn't bloated once a month,
Right.
every month? So it's things like this that really, when I look back, those are the things that scare me most because I went into my doctor's office and I told him I felt fine. I didn't even recall any of these issues. And so that's one of the reasons I'm very outspoken and want to create awareness for this issue, along with other cancers, and just the importance of women making their health a priority. But I think through all of it, it was obviously a very difficult chapter in my life, and it's an ongoing journey. And I think for me at this point, it's also sharing the importance of understanding, not just for patients but for caregivers as well, that just because treatment ends, the journey doesn't end. For the patient, there's still the mental, the emotional, and often the physical issues that continue. And so it's just kind of understanding the new normal and how do we work with that.
I'm reading your book right now, and the part that you had the appointment and you were going to call and cancel it, it kind of gave me goosebumps. And we had another interview with a doctor talking about heart health and how we do this all the time. We cancel our appointments because things gum up and we get busy, and we often tend to put ourselves on the back burner, caring for others more than we care for ourselves. Why do you think that is, and how can this impact women's health overall?
I think when I look at myself, I feel like it often comes down to guilt, right?
Right. Doesn't
Oh, I
everything.
should be. It doesn't everything, right? I should be at work. I should be working on that proposal. I should be with my kids. I should be taking them here and there and everywhere and making those home cooked goods to bring to, I mean, everything that we do, there's kind of this element of I should do it better. I need to be super mom and super worker and everything else. And that's actually one of the reasons I started my company, was this idea of focusing on health and wellness from the perspective of let's make our health a priority, because if we don't have our health, we can't do and be there for all of those things and people that we need to be there for, right?
Right.
So what wasn't good about this was, here I launched my company, and less than 6 months later, I call up to cancel my appointment because, well, I'm so busy. I'm so busy telling other women to make sure they get to their appointment that I'm going to postpone mine. So obviously the guilt set in. I was put on hold right away when I called up, and I felt this guilt and this weight. And so I knew I couldn't make the appointment. It was in a few weeks and I was going to be out of town, and I was just going to put it off to the next year. With everything going on. But when she came back on the line, I said, you know what, can I just get on the cancellation list? I'll make it work out. I just want first available. And she said, well, that was actually a cancellation on the other line. Can you come over now?
Oh, wow.
And that still to this day gives me goosebumps.
Yeah.
And it is. And we just feel like there was someone watching out for me. And I did. I went right over there, and that was the day I learned I had a baseball-sized cyst on my left ovary.
Wow.
And I'm one of the few fortunate women where my cancer was detected early. And ovarian cancer, that is rarely the case. And so it's one of those things where I've it was already a passion of mine with regard to health and wellness, but at this point, just helping women, I'm just more passionate than ever about, we have to take care of ourselves. We have to focus on our own health. And there is nothing selfish about it, because if we aren't healthy, we can't be here for all of those who depend on us.
Yeah. Right.
Very true.
Ooh, talk about a divine intervention right there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So can you tell our listeners how they can learn more about your health and fitness company?
Yes, absolutely. So it was very easy. My website is shannonmiller.com. But my company is really all about everything from, fitness and nutrition. We do workout videos. I have a line of fitness clothing. So all that fun stuff. But it also covers important issues: cancer awareness, heart disease, diabetes, motherhood, the changes in our body, but also how do we take care of our kids and keep them active and healthy. And our approach is really kind of an everything in moderation approach, because I think a lot of us feel, and I know I'm this way, I honestly, I don't have the willpower to give up complete foods and food groups, or the time to go and work out 2 hours a day, 6 days a week. So it's finding a way to make health a priority, but also find a way to make it manageable for very busy women in their everyday lives, so that it's something that they can keep up with and feel really good about each and every day.
Yeah, exactly. We don't have to still try to compete every single day. We can do it for ourselves and enjoyment. So
Absolutely.
That's right. And it doesn't have to be perfect. Just because you didn't get a 60-minute workout today doesn't mean that 10 minutes is all for naught. You got 10 minutes in, and you got a great 10 minutes in, and that's better than nothing. So that's a win.
Right. I was going to ask, any of your kiddos interested in gymnastics, what does sports look like for them?
Sports is everywhere. They're very active, which is something that's important to me, is that, they find something to be active in. So they do all kinds of youth sports, but gymnastics is one of them. Our son, he's not in gymnastics anymore. He was when he was younger. He is rolled into the Ninja Warrior program.
I love that.
Isn't it fun?
But yeah, which is basically gymnastics, but it's a cooler name.
Yeah.
But in our daughter, she's in gymnastics. She's only 4, so I would say 5 and under. You kind of barely call it gymnastics because
Mm-hmm.
really it's running, jumping, starting to learn somersaults and
Mm-hmm.
just having fun. But I love it. They love swim, they love golf and tennis and soccer, and both of them did taekwondo for a while. So they're just kind of having fun, figuring out what they like.
Wow.
Getting
Doing
more
lots of things.
balance.
I love
Yeah.
it.
So, Shannon, at the end of every interview, we always like to ask our interviewees how they live out the FIT philosophy. So, how do you try to balance performance, health, intellect, and taking time for self?
Well, isn't that the most difficult question of all?
That's why we save it for last.
Yes. How do we balance? And this is something I think it's always a work in progress for each and every one of us. And what balance looked like for me in training, balancing my training along with my education. I mean, those were the two things I had to balance. And while it was challenging, I would say it was nowhere near as challenging as what life presents when you actually get out and you're in the workforce, you're a mom, whatever it is, life just gets messy. It gets much more difficult to balance because, frankly, everything is a priority.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, balance is a constant reminder that it's okay to make certain things a priority and that I don't have to constantly feel guilty about the little things that don't work out or not having everything at the top of my list. And so health is obviously one of the things at the top of my list because I know what it's like now to not be healthy.
Mm-hmm.
And when I couldn't get out of bed, literally couldn't get out of bed to take care of my son. So I know that I'm kind of I feel less guilty about taking care of my health now because
Mm-hmm.
I know about that. But I think, making sure I have a focus on intellect, which means to me, not just focusing on the work I have to do today and the health I have to do today, but also reaching outside and having new activities and getting out and having those hobbies and other things that really balance and fulfill your life. They make everything that you do better because you bring new ideas and new experiences to your work and to your family. So I try to look at it that way. And I think oftentimes when we have that balance in our lives, we are more productive, we're more sane, we are able to be there for our family in a better way. And I think it helps everything that you do work in a better way.
Mm-hmm.
It just feels less forced because you're taking care of you at the same time.
Yep, absolutely.
Well, Shannon, we're glad that you were able to call in and get that cancellation. So you're here today to share your story.
Mm-hmm.
We hope a lot of other women will feel empowered. And the next time they want to cancel or put off an appointment, they think twice.
Yeah, don't you do it.
Absolutely.
Get your butt in there.
I was like, gotta go. Gotta do it.
Well, thanks so much for joining us, Shannon. And if you want to connect with Shannon and learn more about her health and fitness company, go to shannonmiller.com. Thanks so much, Shannon.
Thank you so much.
Bye, Queen.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you to our sponsor today, Sentimano Counseling. Sentimano Counseling is the premier perinatal mental health practice in Kansas City, treating mood disorders during pregnancy and postpartum, perinatal loss, infertility, eating, and exercise disorders. Go to sentimano.com for further information about the practice and services. For additional information on today's topic and guests, follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at Fit for a Queen. And
Hashtag Fit for a Queen.
don't forget to rate us on iTunes. We can't wait for you to join us next time on Fit for a Queen.
Bye, Queens.